In this video I'm going to talk about how to nourish the earth element. Now, the earth element that I'm speaking of is from the Chinese medicinal context. So I'm going to talk about what is the earth element, why you should care about it, what is an influence, and why it is important. Now, one way to just illustrate the whole thing, this whole conversation, in a really quick and easy way that you'll understand right now, is imagine yourself right now, imagine yourself walking out in the woods, just standing, in your front yard maybe, looking out and thinking about the elements, earth, air, fire, water, wood, metal, fire, earth. Okay, you're thinking about all these things, right? You're standing there. Okay, what are you standing on? The earth. Okay, if you weren't standing on the earth, and if you weren't actually present on the earth, you really wouldn't be able to think of any elements. Now, of course, you can have space shuttles and go off into space, but think of yourself, 1,000 years ago. You're an indigenous person trying to understand the elements, trying to understand nature. It all contingents on the earth. It's all dependent upon the earth. If the earth is blowing up and erupting in a volcano and killing you, you can't really take much time to think about the elements. But the earth is nourishing you and providing food for you and allowing you to have shelter and heat and water and food so you can actually live. Then you can actually think about the elements. So that's basically why nourishing the earth element, cultivating the earth element, and keeping it balanced is important, because it's what's really underlying everything else. Now, in our body, this applies in the same way, because what the earth element is in its physiological functioning is related to our digestive processes. So that would be in Chinese medicine called our spleen system, our spleen qi, which is really anatomically our stomach, small intestine, our duodenum, and really even our large intestine and our spleen all fall under, our pancreas also as well, very importantly, fall under this category, because these are the organs that are in charge of breaking down and transporting nutrients. Because what does the earth do? If you take something and you put it in the earth, what does it do? It's basically rotted and ripened and broken down into other nutrients that then feed other nutrients and nourish other nutrients. So when we put in food in our mouth, it's broken down by our stomach, it's rotted so that it can be turned into nourishment and sustenance for our body, so that we can build tissue and build our organism, to actually build our physical body. So you can understand why this process is important, because if you can't do that, if this process is hindered, then your physical body is going to break down, it's going to be at a low level of energy, your mind is going to be weak, and your life is pretty much either going to end, or it's going to end prematurely, or your quality of life is just going to be low. So how does this relate to food, and how does this relate to the energetics of food? And also we're going to get into some of the mental aspects and some of the other things outside of food that allow us to really nourish ourselves and build this earth energy. Now, when it comes to food, there are, of course, temperatures of food. There's hot food, like a really hot soup, something just off of, a grill or a pan. And then there's really cold food, something out of the freezer, raw food, uncooked food. That would be cold food. But also, there's the energetics of food, meaning there's the temperature and the energetic effect that it engenders and influences in our body. Meaning, we could take a warm drink, okay, which pretty much everyone would say, oh, it's warm and it's warming, it's going to be good for us, okay? But we can actually take a warm drink that can have a cooling, dampening effect in our body. So it can actually, dampen our digestive fire, dampen our spleen qi, and really undermine that whole earth element, because our earth element is our spleen qi, is our digestive function, is our ability to break down nutrients and transport fluids throughout the body. So just because something is warm or hot in temperature does not mean that it has that energetic effect and that actual tangible effect in the body. So that's why I'm really not a big fan of eating a lot of raw food. And of course there's exceptions if you live in the tropics, if you are a really hot nature person, whatever. But for most people, they're really deficient in this earth element anyways, and our digestive functions are really weak anyways. And typically a lot of people run cold anyways. Cold hands, cold feet, poor circulation, poor fluid metabolism, water retention, gas, bloating, indigestion, swelling of face, swelling of the lymphatic system, swelling of the organs, prolapse of the organs, poor posture, poor skin tone, poor blood circulation, poor blood building, foggy thoughts, poor memory, all of those things so many people are really just suffering from. And that's just the physical aspect. This isn't even the mental, emotional, psychological patterns that go along with that. So to take all of those things that so many of us are really trying to overcome and then do things that really push the energy and weaken it even more is typically not a good idea. So to take someone who's really spacey and out of it and foggy in the head and who's always cold and really has poor digestion and is gassy and bloated and has really a weak appetite, no desire to exercise, no desire to be active, and to take them and say, hey, eat a bunch of cold, dampening food that's going to dampen that energy even more. It's not really intelligent, it's not really a good idea to do because it takes the energy that's already weak and weakens it more. Because this energy of our spleen chi, of our earth element, wants to be warm and dry. It wants to be hot and dry. Just imagine it as like a cooker. Your stomach is really the pot, and then the fire under it is that spleen chi. It's the heat that wants to be going all the time. It's just because when we put that food in, it needs to be cooked down and broken down and transported throughout our body. Because we get our energy, from the food we eat and from the air that we breathe, and that's really the metabolic process. So you can look at it as the stomach is, the stove, and there's that spleen chi of the fire under it. But then what's stoking the fire? What's the bellows of the fire? That's the lungs. So these two processes together really keep the body warm, keep fluid moving, keep our posture upright, keep our mental processes clear, and help actually our body to build up our tissue and keep our spleen chi strong. So that's why typically eating a lot of raw food is not really a good idea. That doesn't mean you have to eat, burnt, charred, disgusting food. What that means is intelligently preparing healing foods, intelligently preparing high quality foods that are nourishing for yourself. Because part of the earth element is this nourishing quality, because what happens when we eat? We're nourishing our body. We're giving our body nutrition, we're giving our body energy that it will then take and turn into, convert into, ATP for our cells, which will be immediate energy, but also used to repair, muscle, to rebuild tissue, to rebuild everything in our body and actually build up our body. So another way to strengthen this earth element, strengthen this spleen chi, is to really nourish ourselves. Not just with food, but with activities that we enjoy, with positive relationships, with positive thoughts, with happiness, with rest, but also with exercise. Because the quality of the muscles and our ability to put on muscles is governed by the spleen chi. So if we work our muscles through exercise, then we'll actually be able to build that spleen chi as well, which is why you notice if you have, kind of sluggish digestion, but you go exercise, your digestion improves, because these two things are kind of interplaying off of each other. So another way to really nourish this earth element, getting more into more of the mental, emotional aspects, is to start to really have healthy boundaries and to start to really consciously and intelligently respect ourselves and respect other people. Now, this might sound a little weird, like, wait, what does this have to do with earth element? Okay, well, people say what? Mother Earth, okay? When people think of the earth, they think of nourishing, giving, loving. Okay, that's the energy of, a mother. So one way to illustrate it is kind of like two extremes of mothers. There's, the mother that really, will just be a doormat and allow everyone to walk all over them. And this isn't just true for women. Men are, susceptible to this as well. Everyone is, because we all have this energy. We all have these same patterns. This is just one illustration. So on one end of the extreme is just allowing people to just walk all over you. And typically in the spiritual community, the New Age community, and kind of the hippie or even stoner community, people are definitely deficient in this because they're so passive and they think, maybe this person is offending me and encroaching on my boundaries and just repeatedly encroaching on my boundaries, but I don't really value myself enough to step up and say, hey, you can't do this anymore. This needs to stop. This is how it's going to be, or else see you later. So what they do is say, oh, dude, it doesn't matter, whatever. It's not cool to be, uptight or angry or stand up for yourself or be spiritual or whatever. So basically the opposite yin extreme. The far extreme is just complete passivity, being a doormat. The other extreme is just being that overly controlling, manipulative, always in your face, always in your business, always all over everything, that kind of a mother. So somewhere in between, there's a happy medium. In between just the total doormat and in between the total just control freak, neurotic jerk, for lack of a better term, somewhere in there is in the middle. Now sometimes you need to be passive and just let things, blow past you because they're not worth the time. And sometimes you need to be that control freak, you need to be that jerk that steps up and says, hey, this is not cool, you can't do this, this is not acceptable, because you respect yourself, because you nourish yourself, and because you have healthy boundaries for yourself and for the other people. And it's just like you look at a mother, even a wild animal, or even just a human, really nice, really loving, really gentle and kind. But if you try to mess with their kids, you try to step on their territory or mess with their house or you've seen moms with their kitchens. You try to mess with their kitchen and they freak out, and you see a side of them you didn't know that was there. Or you try to mess with a wild bear's children, and what happens? You get killed because the mother says, no, this is not cool, these are my kids, this is my boundary, you're not encroaching on it, and this is it. So it's just one way to understand kind of the mental, emotional aspects of the earth element and how it all interplays, because underlying it all, if you don't value yourself enough, you're not going to nourish yourself with the right food. And you can take the step to say, okay, I'm going to nourish myself with the right food, but if you don't value yourself enough, you're going to let people walk all over you, you're not going to exercise right, you're going to be foggy in the head, you might think, okay, well, I value myself enough to eat healthy, but you take someone else's definition of healthy without actually acknowledging the fact that it's not really working for you, it's not really helping you. And all these things mix together to really nourish this earth element. So hopefully that gives you a really good understanding of the earth element. It's a really deep thing that I've been exploring a lot lately in my own healing process, in my own just exploration. And these are just some things I wanted to share with you. So if you have any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll talk to you soon.